Let me share something about Bad Bunny that many people are still trying to understand. This artist has achieved something unprecedented in the history of music, and it's not just a minor record or a fleeting internet statistic. We're talking about a Guinness World Record, a significant milestone that will be recorded in history forever. Bad Bunny has become the first artist to perform the Super Bowl halftime show in a language other than English. Take a moment to appreciate that. Every artist who has graced that stage, from Michael Jackson to Beyoncé to Prince, has performed in English. Bad Bunny stepped out and delivered the entire show in Spanish, proudly representing Puerto Rico, Latin culture, and every young person who has ever felt that their music didn't belong on the world's biggest stage. And he didn't just perform, he completely dominated the moment. Welcome to Pop Showroom, where we bring you the stories behind the headlines. If you're not subscribed yet, hit that button right now, because this story goes deeper than anything you've seen in the mainstream media. Now, if you thought that was the whole story, you need to keep reading, because what happened after that Super Bowl performance is the kind of thing that sounds made up until you actually look at the numbers. His song DTMF, which was already making noise before the show, shot straight up to #1 on the Billboard Hot 100. Not number 2, not top 5, #1, the highest position any song can reach on the most important music chart in the United States. And what makes this even more jaw-dropping is that DTMF is a song sung entirely in Spanish, and it got to the top of a chart that has historically been dominated by English-language music for decades. This is not just a win for Benito, this is a win for every Spanish-speaking artist who was ever told their language had a ceiling. Let us back up a little bit and talk about who Bad Bunny actually is for anyone who somehow still does not know. His real name is Benito Antonio Martinez Ocasio, and he was born and raised in Puerto Rico. He grew up bagging groceries while uploading music to SoundCloud on the side, which is one of those details that makes his story feel so real and human. He was not handed anything. He was not discovered at some fancy industry event. He was a regular kid with a voice, a vision, and access to the internet. And slowly but surely, the world started paying attention. By the time the streaming era really took off, Bad Bunny had become one of the most streamed artists on the entire planet. He has broken Spotify records multiple times. He has sold out stadiums all over the world. He has made Latin trap and reggaeton cool in places where those genres were barely even known a few years ago. And on February 8th, he stood on the Super Bowl stage in front of the entire world and showed everybody exactly why he belongs at the very top. The performance itself was something people are still talking about. He came out with energy that was impossible to ignore, bringing the heat of Puerto Rican music to an audience of over 128 million viewers in the United States alone. According to NBC Sports, that number makes it the third most watched Super Bowl halftime show in history. Think about that for a moment. The third most watched in history, and it was performed entirely in Spanish. People who had maybe never heard a Bad Bunny song in their life sat down in front of their televisions and got pulled in anyway, because great music does not need a translation to make you feel something. He closed the show with DTMF, which was already sitting at #2 on the Hot 100 at that point, and within days of the performance, the song jumped from #10 all the way to #1. That kind of leap does not happen by accident. That is a cultural moment doing exactly what cultural moments are supposed to do. Here's where the story gets even more interesting, though. DTMF hitting #1 is not just a personal milestone for Benito, it's actually a historic achievement in terms of what it represents for Spanish-language music. Before this moment, the number of predominantly Spanish-language songs to ever reach #1 on the Hot 100 could be counted on one hand. You have Despacito by Luis Fonsi and Daddy Yankee, which featured Justin Bieber and became a global phenomenon in 2017. You have Macarena in the Bayside Boys remix version by Los Del Rio from back in 1996. You have La Bamba by Los Lobos from 1987, and now you have DTMF by Bad Bunny, which is different from all of those because it is the first predominantly Spanish-language #1 on the Hot 100, led by a solo artist with no feature from an English-speaking collaborator pulling audience crossover. This is Bad Bunny doing it completely on his own terms, in his own language, and winning. And speaking of doing things on his own terms, there's a wild detail buried in all of this that most people haven't even caught yet. Both of Bad Bunny's #1 songs on the Billboard Hot 100 were performed at the Super Bowl. His first #1 came back in July 2018 when I Like It with Cardi B and J Balvin reached the top spot. Then, years later, during the Super Bowl halftime show in 2020, he appeared as a guest during Shakira's performance and performed that very same song on the halftime stage. Fast forward to 2025, and now he's headlining the show himself, performing DTMF as the closing song and watching it rise to #1 all over again. 2 #1s, 2 Super Bowl performances. The universe is telling a very specific story about this man, and it would be foolish not to pay attention. But the dominance did not stop at just one #1 song. Right now, as things stand after the Super Bowl, Bad Bunny has 4 songs sitting in the top 10 of the Hot 100 at the same time. 4 songs in the top 10 simultaneously. 2 other tracks from the DTMF project, Baile Inolvidable and Nueva Yo, landed at numbers 2 and 5 respectively. And then there's Titi Me Preguntó, which originally came out on his 2022 album Un Verano Sin Ti, and somehow re-entered the top 10 to sit at number 7 after all the post-Super Bowl attention brought new listeners back to his catalog. That is the kind of chart performance that legends talk about. That is what happens when an artist is not just popular, but genuinely culturally relevant in a way that makes people go back and discover everything they might have missed. Un Verano Sin Ti itself deserves its own moment in this story because it is the album that really changed the conversation around Bad Bunny at a global level. Released in 2022, it became the most streamed album of the year on Spotify, which made him the first Latin artist to ever achieve that. The album was a love letter to Puerto Rico, to the island's sounds, its summers, its streets, and its people. Critics loved it, fans lost their minds over it. And now, years after its release, songs from that project are still finding their way back into the charts because the music was just built to last. When you make something with that much soul in it, people keep coming back. Now zoom out and look at the bigger picture of what this Super Bowl moment meant beyond just the chart numbers. This was February 2025, and the NFL had handed the halftime show to a reggaeton artist for the first time ever. The NFL does not make moves like that without knowing what they're doing. They picked Bad Bunny because they recognized something that the culture had already confirmed, which is that Latin music is not a niche genre anymore. It is not a trend or a moment. It is a force. It has been building for years, pushing through language barriers and geographic boundaries, and Bad Bunny has been at the center of that movement the entire time. When he stepped onto that stage, he was not just representing himself, he was representing every Latin artist who ever wondered whether the mainstream would ever fully open its doors. The Grammy Awards had already been kind to him in the weeks leading up to the Super Bowl, adding more trophies to a collection that keeps growing. By the time he got to the halftime show, he was already riding one of the hottest waves of his career, and the performance turned that wave into a tsunami. The reviews from fans online were overwhelmingly positive. People were impressed not just by the music, but by the confidence, the pride, and the sheer joy he brought to the stage. There was nothing apologetic about the performance. He did not soften his Puerto Rican identity to make it more palatable for a mainstream American audience. He brought it exactly as it was, full and unfiltered, and the audience responded with love. What Bad Bunny has done is something that very few artists in any era have managed to pull off. He has taken music that was rooted in a specific culture, in a specific language, and made it resonate on a universal scale without ever watering it down. He did not cross over by becoming someone else. He crossed over by being so undeniably himself that the world had no choice but to meet him where he was. The Guinness World Record for the first non-English halftime show performance is just the official stamp on something the streets already knew. This man changed the game. He did it in Spanish, he did it with pride, and if the charts are telling us anything right now, he is nowhere close to being done. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this situation, so please share your opinions in the comments. Also, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications to stay updated on this story.